Hi, I'm Eric Lukens, OBI's Director of Communications. I'd like to thank Renzo Meza with the Oregon Treasurer's Office for joining us today to talk about Oregon Saves. Oregon Saves is the state's mandated retirement plan. I asked Renzo to join us to talk about the program because, as Oregon Public Broadcasting reported last month, many businesses in the state aren't familiar with Oregon Saves, yet businesses were required to sign up for the program by the end of July. So a couple of housekeeping notes before I hand control to Renza. This webinar is being recorded for the benefit of anybody who can't participate today. It will be available this week on our website. And Renzo's presentation will take about 20 minutes. So there will be plenty of time afterwards for questions. To ask one, please use the Q&A function. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. And again, thanks for being here today, Renzo, and it's all yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, let me pop open my screen, make sure you can see it okay. Can you see my screen okay? I think you're on mute, Eric. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yeah,
okay, perfect. Great, no problem. Well, yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you again for the invitation. My name is Renzo Meza, one of the outreach managers here at the Treasury, and I'm going to spend a few minutes this morning talking about the Oregon Saves Retirement Savings Program. So briefly, just kind of what I'll be talking about, so you know what's coming up ahead. I'll be starting with a high-level program overview, talking a little bit about the specifics of employers' role within the program. I'll probably take questions as this is kind of that halfway point, just in case there's anything specific to the program that you have questions about. And then the second half of the presentation is really walking you through how to register, certify an exemption, and most importantly, how to submit payroll contributions once you once you register with Oregon Saves and are ready to get the process started with your employees, and then leave any remaining time at the end for Q&A. So I'll begin sort of high level. What is Oregon Saves? Oregon Saves is a retirement savings program. It is administered by the state of Oregon, and its overarching goal is to help ensure that Oregonians have a simple way to save for retirement in the workplace. And I'll explain why that workplace element is tremendously important here in a bit. But what Oregon Saves does is it gives Oregonians access to a Roth individual retirement account. If you're unfamiliar with a Roth IRA, we like to just describe it as, simply as we can, as a long-term savings account that's meant to be withdrawn from after the age of 59 and a half. So what's sort of unique to a Roth IRA compared to other retirement savings tools are that you can contribute up to $6,500 per year into this account, $7,500 if you're over the age of 50. But in particular, what's special about this account is that interest or earnings that you make on this account are tax-free when you go to make the withdrawals, as long as you are, again, over the age of 59 and a half and your Roth IRA has been open for more than 5 years. So for example, let's say you've been saving in your Roth IRA for 30 years, you're 65 and you want to start pulling from this account to help you fund your retirement. So if you have $200,000 saved in this account, that $200,000 is yours tax-free. So when you go to pull, say, $20,000 out one year, you don't have to worry about, how much do I have to pay taxes on this? This is your money, your account, tax-free for withdrawals. So it's meant to be pretty simple to use later on. So as I mentioned, there is an employer element to Oregon Saves. The same legislation that created Oregon Saves said that all Oregon businesses that don't offer a workplace retirement savings plan are required to offer Oregon Saves. So in other words, if you don't have a 401k, 403b, simple IRA, or SEP IRA offered to your employees, you need to facilitate Oregon Saves. Now, the deadline for businesses to register for Oregon Saves was July 31st, 2023. If you haven't registered, if you missed this deadline, we strongly urge you to register as soon as possible to not be considered non-compliant. Moreover, all new businesses, newly registered businesses in the state of Oregon will have until July 31st of 2024 to register with Oregon Saves. So just keep that in mind, that July 31st is sort of that annual registration deadline for new businesses. And so while employers are required to offer some sort of retirement savings option to their employees, participation is completely voluntary for employees. Employees get to decide if and how they participate in the program. Now, of course, I want to sort of take a minute to explain why Oregon Saves was created. The real impetus behind the creation of the program was this, national retirement savings crisis. Approximately 25% of working adults have no retirement savings at all. And even among those that are saving, a considerable proportion feel as though they're not really on track to retire the way they'd like to. Beyond that, as we were considering how to really shape Oregon Saves, we learned that workers are 15 times more likely to save for retirement if the option is available through their employer. In other words, if it's another kind of paycheck deduction that's really passive, it takes a lot of the thinking out of it, and it's money going right into your long-term savings IRA. So it's, again, really simple, very convenient, and takes a lot of the thinking of it out of it, but gets you saving. And through national surveys, we know that Americans like this idea of a state facilitated retirement savings program. Oregon was actually the first state to launch a statewide retirement savings program, and now there are 19 states with statewide programs. So it's really catching on, and we really feel good about the success of these programs. So, of course, we wanted to bake in some employer benefits into Oregon Saves. First and foremost, I want to mention that there is no cost to employers for facilitating Oregon Saves. No cost. Their employers take on no fiduciary responsibility. So, in other words, employers are not responsible for managing or preserving employees' investments or savings. Their role is really just to facilitate the contributions every time they run payroll. And we've worked really hard to make the process as simple as possible. We're very much committed to simplifying it more. We're always open to employer feedback, but really we feel good about the place Oregon Saves is in and how simple it is to use. And I'll be walking you through this process and talking about some of the enhancements we've made recently to make this process simpler for employers. So to kind of break down specifically the employer, do's and don'ts or responsibilities, really it starts with registering by the deadline. Part of this registration and onboarding process is setting up a payroll account and then adding your eligible employees to your roster. And then, of course, the most important part is making sure that you're submitting those payroll contributions. In other words, putting the money in folks' Oregon Saves account every time you run payroll. And of course, this is for the employees that want to be enrolled in the program. So making sure that you're regularly making those contributions. What employers are not responsible for is making business contributions. There is no match ability with Oregon Saves. Additionally, employers are not responsible for providing financial advice or assisting with the withdrawal process. So if an employee comes and says, hey, how should I invest my money here? Or how much should I contribute? Or I'm ready to retire, I want to pull out my money. Those are not questions that the employer needs to answer. They can suggest consulting a tax professional. They can give us a call and we can try to answer some of their questions. And as I mentioned, if they're ready to make a withdrawal, that's something that's done through us. So they can do that online. They can give us a call, send in some paperwork, and we'll help them with those withdrawals. And then really leaving the choice to employees about whether they participate in the program or not, leaving that decision up to the employees. So which employees are eligible to participate in Oregon Saves? So the program is open to full-time and part-time employees. Those employees must be 18 years old, at least 18 years old, work in Oregon, and they need to have a social security number or an I-10. I also want to mention that, Oregon, we have a lot of seasonal or temporary workers. So the threshold to be eligible for Oregon Saves, if they work for you for more than 60 days in a calendar year, they are eligible to be enrolled in Oregon Saves. So just wanted to clarify that there. I'll be referencing this slide a little bit later, but through feedback, I've gotten that it can be helpful in sort of framing the registration process of Oregon Saves. So once a business registers and completes the onboarding, employees will be notified that they've been enrolled in the program. And they have this 30-day grace period to decide if and how they want to participate in the program. So during this 30-day grace period, there are no paycheck deductions. It's really just giving them time to make a decision. What I want to point out is that if they do not want to participate in Oregon Saves, they need to actively opt out. It's an opt-out program. So they'll need to go into the system, give us a call, or mail in some paperwork to say, hey, I do not want to participate. If they forget, if they ignore it, or essentially take no action, they'll remain enrolled in the program and start to see those paycheck deductions after those 30 days whenever the employer runs payroll. So just wanted to clarify that. So now let me walk you through sort of what this standard enrollment process looks like if an employee says, yeah, I want to participate, I'm ready to start saving for retirement. The standard flow is that every time 5% of their gross earnings will be deducted from their paycheck, out of every paycheck, excuse me. And then the contribution rate will increase by 1% every year until they reach 10%. Also, of course, the money in this account is invested to increase the ROI, the potential ROI. So for the first 30 days, the money is invested in a capital preservation fund, essentially a money market fund, but it spends the majority of its lifetime in a target retirement date fund. Now, so that is the standard enrollment. Of course, savers have the option to customize their accounts. They can change the contribution rate. They can suspend the auto escalation, change their investment options, designate beneficiaries, manage personal information, what have you. And of course, the option is always there to opt out of the program if the timing is not right. And it's really easy to opt back in should someone be in a position to start saving for retirement again. So really simple to opt out, really simple to opt in. We wanted to make it, again, really manageable for savers. I totally understand that sort of the financial elements sometimes can be a little tricky. So we want to just highlight here that by investing with a Roth IRA, there is the potential for heightened returns. So, for example, if you were to save $50 per month for 10 years, you have contributed about $6,000, but after 10 years, you can have close to $9,000. Another example, let's say you're able to save $250 for 40 years. You yourself have contributed about I believe it's $60,000. But after those 40 years, you can have, $386,000 saved for retirement. That, again, I remind you, is tax-free if you're over the age of 59 and a half. And obviously the account has been open for more than 5 years. So really one of the benefits here of a retirement account is the sooner you can start saving, regardless of the amount, can really provide tremendous benefit in the future. So I'm at that halfway point. If there are any questions related to the program itself that I can answer before I cover some of the bits about the registration and onboarding process. So I'm going to take a peek here at the Q&A, but if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask.
I have a question, Renzo. So if a company did not register by July 31st and does so now, will it receive a penalty?
Yeah. Our main goal is to really be supportive of employers. And so if we want to work with them, so if there was any sort of issue with their process kind of enrollment, they can give us a call. We can definitely work with them, and if they get enrolled quickly, we can take them off this non-compliant list where they won't receive a penalty.
Okay. And how are employees notified that they've been enrolled in the program?
Yeah, so we have sent a number of mailings to employers across the state. That's one way. We have also held a number of outreach events throughout the state. We've been working with a ton of partners to make sure that information about the program has gone out on listservs. because we know employers are very involved in that community. But the primary way has been through mailings directly to employers.
Oh, sorry, I probably asked the question wrong. So what happens when an employer enrolls is the employer will add all the employees to the program, right? It'll share the information about employees, and then employees themselves are notified that they've been enrolled in the program, right?
Oh, yes, correct. So yeah, once an employer uh, uploads their eligible employee roster, the employees are notified immediately, either via email or mailing, depending on what information is provided. Immediately, something is sent out so that they know they've been enrolled in the program and have time to decide if and how they participate.
Okay. And so if you're an employer and you've been participating in the program and then you hire new employees, you have to enroll those new employees into the program. What is the window for adding new employees to the roster?
Great question. So employees need to be added within 60 days of hire.
Um, I think that's all the questions I had.
Great. I didn't see anything in the Q&A, but correct me if I'm wrong. But otherwise, I'm happy to move on.
Oh, I had one more question. Okay.
Oh, yeah, please.
Once an employer with a qualified retirement plan registers with the state and claims an exemption, must that employer renew that exemption at set periods, or is that it for the employer?
Yeah, for now it is for now it is a one-time exemption. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I will move on from here. Okay, so now, as I mentioned, I'm going to walk you through how to register your business in OregonSaves. So the best starting place is to head over to OregonSaves.com. About midway down the page, you will see an employers box. And right there, about midway through that box, you'll see a button that says register your business. So I do want to mention too, and this is Eric, something you mentioned earlier. Uh, and I mentioned you can certify your exemption. So you may certify an exemption if you already offer a retirement savings plan like a 401k or a 403b, or if you currently have no W-2 employees. So if you meet those sort of those fields, then you can certify an exemption. And I'll walk you through how to do that here in a minute and what that page looks like. But for the most part, to register your business, you'll click on register your business. And I want to point out that you'll need two bits of information. You'll need your employer identification number and you'll need your unique OregonSaves access code. So this is something that was included in the mailings we sent to employers. But again, if it got misplaced, if it's been a while and you don't have it anymore, you can always contact us and we'll provide you with that access code that you can use to get started. I like to mention this as sort of the starting place or the starting information you'll need so that if you set aside some time to really complete this onboarding process, you have those two bits of information that you'll need from the jump and don't run into any barriers. So you'll need those two things. Once you have that, you'll create a profile essentially. So what you'll need to do is enter an email address and set a password. I do want to kind of mention that it's helpful to include an email address that is monitored. As I mentioned, we're constantly wanting to improve OregonSaves and we're making enhancements, be it payroll integrations. So we send some of these updates, some of these resources to the email that's on file. So again, we hope that it's one that's monitored. Also, if you reach out to us and we need to follow up with you about something, this will also be kind of a primary email address that we look at. So once you do that, you will see a banner that says your profile has been created. While this is a tremendous first step, I do want to mention that there still is more to do in the onboarding process. Some folks have thought that, this is it. And while we wish it was that quick and that simple, there is a little bit more information that we need. So if you can go ahead and just sign in right there and continue the process, that is the best. So from there, you will enter company information, any DBAs, confirm mailing information, and then you will set up payroll. So what this process looks like is you'll let us know if you work with any payroll systems. This information is helpful so that if you are experiencing any payroll issues, we kind of know who you're working with and we can provide you with tailored support. Of course, if you do this manually or in-house, say using an Excel spreadsheet, that is totally fine. There's a drop down there that says no payroll provider in-house, and that is totally fine. Kind of lets us know how you're operating with the system. And then you'll set a pay schedule. You can name it whatever you want. You put in your normal frequency. And what this is for is just to allow the OregonSaves system to help keep you on track. We know it might be a new process in your payroll system. And so you'll get email reminders just saying, hey, don't forget, you said, you run payroll on this date. Don't forget to do the OregonSaves portion. From there, you will actually link it to your payroll account. In most cases, this is the same payroll account that's used to pay employees. So there are two ways to enter this information. You can do so securely through Plaid, where this is really quick and convenient. All you need to do is essentially log in and log into your bank account, and the system will capture the necessary information. I want to clarify that what we're capturing is just your routing number and account number. We're not looking at transaction history. We're not looking at personal information. And to be sure, if you want to enter this information manually, all that we ask for is your routing number and account number. So two ways to do it, whichever you prefer. One may just be a little bit quicker. And then the third step in the onboarding process is adding employees. So as you can see here on the right, there are some required fields: Social Security, first name, last name, date of birth, and your physical address. This goes to Eric's point earlier. Email address is not a required field, but it is a recommended one. If an email address is entered, you will receive that notice that you've been enrolled in OregonSaves a lot quicker, within 48 hours. So it just kind of, it's just the speedier option. Otherwise, you'll be receiving a hard copy mailing. So there's two ways to enter employee information. Again, if you only have a handful of employees, maybe entering it manually is easiest. But if you have a payroll system, if you have an existing roster, you can just upload a file as long as it has the required information within it. And it doesn't need to be formatted like our document, or the headers don't need to be exactly the same. If it has more information, our system will intuitively ask you to essentially pair information based on headers. So ours says SSN. If yours says Social Security, you'll see Social Security in the dropdown and tell the system that you want information from this column to go to correspond to this. So the system will sort of help you out if you upload a file. And then once you add all your employees, you'll see a page confirming the total number of employees that you've added, with a little yellow check mark, and the finish onboarding process will illuminate. Once you click on that, you'll see a banner that says onboarding complete. And as I mentioned, this is what triggers that 30-day grace period. So from here, employees now have 30 days to decide if and how they want to participate in the program. Recommendation we make to employers is to give their employees a heads up as far in advance as they can that they'll be registering in OregonSaves, to avoid receiving confused questions from employees like, hey, I received this notice. Have you heard of it? It just kind of takes a lot of confusion and out of the equation. I also want to mention too that we are totally here to help you through the process of informing or talking to your employees about OregonSaves. We don't necessarily expect employers to take that on if they don't feel comfortable talking about the ins and outs of the program. We are happy to support you. Feel free to reach out, and we're happy to come host a webinar, an in-person a conversation around OregonSaves, answer questions. So feel free to reach out if you'd like support. But again, we do recommend giving employees a heads up. And now just want to highlight some additional features within the OregonSaves system that might be helpful to employers. So we understand that there might be more than one person that is capable or is meant to handle payroll and make payroll contributions. So once you complete the onboarding process, within the portal, you'll see a building icon on the left side and then a drop down that says Manage Admin Team. This will essentially allow you to add another administrator with full rights access to help you facilitate the Oregon Saves payroll contribution. So you'll click on Add Teammate. You'll enter their email address. They'll receive an email. They'll create a little profile to log in, and then again they'll have complete administrative access to help you out here. And then going back a step to the exemption page. So if you already offer a retirement savings plan or currently have no W-2 employees, you'll use that FEIN number and that Oregon Saves access code. You'll enter that, and then you'll be taken to this page where you can explain why you're certifying your exemption. Currently have no W-2 employees, or you offer a retirement plan. You'll enter some information and then you'll confirm your exemption. So after this page, you're good to go if you offer one of these plans. So I have a few more slides on just, as I mentioned, the important part of submitting the payroll contributions that I just want to walk you through. So now that you've created a profile, you'll head back to OregonSaves.com and then you'll click on sign in this time now that you've created a profile. You'll enter the email address and the password that you created, those credentials, and then you'll be taken to the main contribution dashboard page. So the first time around, this page will probably be pretty blank, but over time you'll see kind of a growing transaction history and additional information that might be helpful. But the first step here is really to just click Start Contribution. Then what you'll see on this page is all of the employees who are actively enrolled in the program pre-populated. So these are the folks that didn't opt out, that said they want to participate in the program. You'll see their information and their determined Roth contribution rate. So for example, here, Frank wanted to stay in at the standard 5% rate, Francis at the 3% rate. So there are a couple ways that you can do this. So really what we need, what the employer is responsible for is entering the hard dollar contribution amount. So we don't know what 3% of Francis's gross is. So you would enter that hard dollar figure in this final box here. So you can do that manually, or again, you can upload a file if it contains this information, whichever you prefer, whichever is more convenient. As you can see kind of right beneath the date of the contribution, there's one more box that says copy from, and there's a date. So the system after your first contribution will allow you to just essentially copy the information from your last payroll deduction. This is only really helpful if folks are maybe salaried or just working the same amount of hours pretty consistently. But if you have hourly folks whose hours change, this might not be the most helpful tool, but I just wanted to shout it out just in case so you kind of know what that button is about. And then again, if your payroll file that you upload is a little bit different of ours, that is totally fine. You'll be able to pair information so that all of the boxes are filled out. So again, once that Roth amount dollar, there's a dollar figure in there. The send and validate button in the bottom right corner will illuminate blue, and that'll allow you to move forward. So if for any reasons there's an issue, maybe you accidentally deleted and retyped in their social security number incorrectly, or another situation is maybe that someone is about to surpass their annual contribution limit on their Roth IRA, the system will tell you, hey, there's an error. This person's going to exceed their contribution rate, or this social security number doesn't look right, and it'll prompt you to essentially make the changes. So intuitive system, again, it'll kind of help guide you through things if there's an issue so that you can make a correction and go from there. But then before you submit, you will have a chance to review all of the information you've entered. You can take a look at the total amount that's going to be deducted, I guess, from your payroll account, confirm the account that it's being pulled from, look at each employee's contribution just to make sure everything looks right. If you need to make a change, you can always edit the submission, but if everything looks good, you just click on complete submission to move on to the next page. And that will get your payroll contribution processing. And then you will receive an email also saying that you've submitted it and you're good to go. It'll look something like this. So I do just want to highlight a few more features. So, hopefully once you're familiar with Oregon Saves, at any point an employee could decide, hey, I'm ready to opt back in, or, I want to change my contribution rate. I want to contribute a little bit more. The system will send you an email, of course, but also when you log in, you'll see a kind of a red icon that says view X deferral changes. And you'll click on that just to see that the changes what changes have been made so that you can make those corresponding changes in your payroll system or in the notes you take, however you're doing it. So again, the system will alert you to any changes. And then, as I mentioned, we want to make Oregon Saves as seamless as possible, as convenient as possible. We know that businesses, particularly small businesses, are working with kind of online payroll providers or receiving support with payroll from certain businesses. And so we built integrations to where, for example, if you're using QuickBooks Online and entering this information there's an integration that essentially allows you to do it one time in QuickBooks Online and then just send over the information to Oregon Saves so that you don't have to go into our portal as well and then re-enter information. So again, this is payroll integrations is something we're hoping to expand. Here are the payroll providers we're currently working with. But just the feature of Oregon Saves that I wanted to highlight for folks hoping that it's convenient. And then as I wrap up here, we have a very comprehensive, very robust, very helpful help center page that essentially walks you in additional detail regarding all the matters that I just went over, how to register, how to add additional security to Oregon Saves, understanding employee status, like if they're pending in that 30-day window. This is a tremendous resource that is very helpful. Our team worked really hard on this. I reference this if I ever forget something. So you can access this help center via the link you see on the screen, but there's also an icon in the Oregon Saves portal that takes you to this page. So, if you just happen to forget something I mentioned, you can go in here and chances are your question will be answered. There are videos, step-by-step guides. It's a tremendous resource. And yeah, as you're considering Oregon Saves, as I mentioned, we feel really great about this program. Over $214 million saved by Oregonians. Hundreds of thousands of people are over 100,000 people are saving with Oregon Saves. Thousands of employers are participating. We are getting good feedback. So yeah, we thank you for your interest. We feel really good about the program and are happy to help you in any way that we can. As I mentioned, always here to support you. Feel free to email us, call us, please access the help center. But yeah, we are always here. And Oregon Saves does cover a few additional state savings programs that I briefly want to highlight. We also offer Oregon College Savings Plan, that's a higher education savings account, and Oregon Able Savings Plan, which is a savings account for folks with disabilities that doesn't compromise their state or federal assistance. So with that, that is it for me. I want to thank you all for your interest, and we'll use the remainder of the time to answer any questions.
Thanks, Renzo. So I have a couple more.
Yeah.
I looked at the Google reviews for Oregon Saves, and people tend to leave reviews about things when they're angry. So take these for what it's worth. But at least some employees aren't happy about the fact that the program is an opt-out program rather than an opt-in program. And people generally don't like opt-out programs. Does the treasurer's office plan to change this, or is that, is that just how it's going to be going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I can answer that. I mean, that would be a question that's ultimately made by the treasurer and the Oregon Retirement Savings Board that oversees this program. But yeah, I mean, we understand. I think we've heard those comments and I think understand them. But kind of going back to the why of really wanting to get Oregonian saving and understanding that this is kind of a quick and convenient way to allow them to save for retirement really is sort of that driving factor behind the design of the program and why it works that way.
Okay. And I just have one final question, which is, what is the most common question employers ask about the program?
Ooh, great question. yeah, I think it always varies. I'm trying to hone in on the, um, uh, I mean, I think, gosh, there's a few. Sorry, I'm kind of blanking the kind. I think it's usually around a sort of, or it's just confirmation of wanting to make sure that there's no cost to the program to them. Especially with small businesses, that's something that's very much on their mind. I mean, I think over time, it's been a while too, because the sort of outreach and these presentations that we've built out are kind of based on answering a lot of the questions that were initially received about the program. So, fortunately, I think it's gotten comprehensive enough to where it's answering a lot of these questions. I mean, I think they were originally around kind of, how do I register and how do I facilitate it? And so we sort of walk them through it, or is there a cost to facilitating? But yeah, so I'd say kind of around the cost. How do I, do I need to facilitate if I offer this program? So yeah, I'd say that's the number one.
Okay, well, great. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks again, Renzo, for being here and telling us about the program and answering questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Again, as I mentioned, if there are more questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to help, but appreciate the time.
Thanks.